Hey everyone, I'm super excited to be here with you guys. My name is Marcy Comer, and I'm talking to you live from a hotel room in San Antonio where I'm attending a roofing conference. I'm crossing my fingers that housekeeping won't bust in on this, but if they do, I think you're all used to interruptions by now. I'm super excited to be talking to you with this excellent group of experts in app promotion. Danny Spira from Yahoo Finance, Taylor Gobar from Bloom, and Bulong Lee from Audible. So let's get started. I'm going to allow each of you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about the app that you manage, and then we'll get started with questions. So Danny, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, thanks, Marcy. So I'm Danny Spira. I lead product marketing for Yahoo Finance, and that's inclusive of both apps, mobile web, and desktop, iOS and Android, and global in nature. So, my team's responsible for the acquisition, engagement, and overall retention of our apps.
All right, Taylor.
I'm Taylor Gobar, head of growth at Bloom, seed stage cognitive behavioral therapy app. So you can imagine we've had quite a year with helping people during the pandemic. So responsible for acquisition, but also growth within the product as well.
And my old colleague, Bulong.
Hey guys, my name is Bulong Lee, and I lead the marketing effort here at Audible, focusing on growth and acquisition. So I hope by this time, most of you already know what Audible is, but for those who don't, this is a audiobook and spoken content subscription business and service, and a part of Amazon as well. And we're doing a lot of different promotions, leveraging our app channels for sure to drive growth. So really happy to be on this panel.
Thanks, guys. And my name is Marcy Comer. I work for a company called EagleView, fully remote. We fly planes over properties and capture aerial imagery. And then we have patented data extraction to allow different users to use those measurements for their purposes. And I met the App Promotion Summit team a few years ago back in New York in an in-person conference when I was working for Dosh, which is a cashback app and ad tech platform, which has since exited. Also, I just wanted to call out really quick before we get started. If you see me looking over here, I'm monitoring the questions. So feel free to pop in with your questions and I'll be sure to ask the panelists. So let's get started. All right. So I'm going to start with you, Bulong. What is one app you can't live without, but not Audible?
2 years ago, it was Dosh. But after that, I would say definitely Google Maps for me. There's a specific reason for it. And even before the pandemic, I used Google Maps quite a lot. But during pandemic, I used it even more because I used to basically use the city commute MTA for transit. But during pandemic, I couldn't do that. And I walked a lot. So I really rely on Google Maps to basically provide navigation for me. That became a hobby and also an exercise for me. So definitely Google Maps.
I have to agree. I can't get anywhere without my phone anymore. All right, so Taylor, what's the biggest difference between how you started your career versus what you do now?
Yeah, I started off in the affiliate space, and technically it was with a health company. And this is my third health company now, and I like to think that I've moved firmly in the direction of actually helping people and not just using healthcare as a profit scheme. Very proud of that. I didn't always have that option based on where I started my career, but today I get to be a little bit more choosy about where I work.
Awesome. And I hope that you're really mindfully grounded too. You have to really focus on that, the CBT stuff. All right, and then Danny, I'm going to circle back to the original question for you. What is the one app you can't live without, not Yahoo Finance?
Sure, yeah. 4 years ago, it was Audible, but no, now actually it's the Apple Health app. I personally, through the pandemic, I found myself, really monitoring my stand minutes, my steps, and overall cardio health. So I've been known to take meetings I've been known to take walking meetings. So I've found that app very helpful for me.
Yeah, I love those. All right, but no standing during the next 50 minutes, okay? So let's get into the general topics here. So I'll start with Belong with you. So what has been a major shift in consumer behavior for your app? And does it affect your growth strategy in 21?
Yeah, for sure. I'm for that because of the pandemic, many apps or brands they probably experience similar things. But for us, we did notice, for example, a lot of our users they start to actually change their main use cases for our apps. So in the past, we noticed that commuting was certainly one of the leading use cases for Audible. And then we could clearly see the peaks during the commuting hours in consumption and even for acquisition, which made total sense. But because of the pandemic, a lot of people, they didn't have to travel to work anymore, so they stay at home. So that use case basically was gone. So for us, we needed to really help our members, our customers to quickly find new ways to fit this into their lives. We knew that they needed this, they needed the content, they needed the time back to themselves, but it probably was not clear back then how they could actually fit this into their lives. So we started to look in naturally to see how people naturally actually navigate or change their user behavior. We noticed quite a few new use cases. For example, we noticed an increase in listening time before bedtime. So which suggested, probably many people, they started to listen to Audible more before they go to bed, which became a downtime for them after a whole day of chaos between work life, right? So we started to basically to hone in on that and then try to actually create collections or better content and editorial and communications to help more customers to basically to lean in for this use case. And we noticed pretty good success in that. So that was a good example. And we certainly, had shifts in customer behavior. But I think that was a really enlightening moment for us.
Yeah, and just a follow-up question for you. So as we start to return to normal, I know California just lifted its, COVID protocols as well. Are you seeing that incremental engagement hold?
I think at least partially. We certainly start to see more and more of the old use cases start to come back. For example, during commuting hours and stuff like that. But it is also our goal to basically to maintain the use cases customer discovered during pandemic, because we believe those are still valid use cases. It just maybe we'll see some of the shifts, but the more use cases we can actually identify and help communicate to our customers, the better for both Audible and the members.
Okay, that's super cool. Okay, and let's see, I'm going to go to Taylor. So which emerging channels do you think will be key for driving user acquisition in 21?
I think I'm in this iOS only bucket, so I'm definitely an app first company right now and dealing with how to manage the death of attribution, so to speak. Anybody who has been heavily reliant on attribution heavy, IDFA heavy processes has to diversify immediately. And there's some other panels that go a little bit deeper into that. But I'm really excited to see some performance channels evolve into kind of branding and product market fit like expression channels, because you have things like celebrities and influencers being a part of the investors. We have Charli D'Amelio investing in Step. We have, athletes investing in mental health apps. It's happening all over the board, and it's expanding the reach of these new brands and finding audiences that maybe would not be willing to listen to just an ad. I think that'll be really interesting to see how many new brands succeed without, co-branding themselves with a celebrity in the future.
Do you think it's like a conversion opportunity, or do you think it's more brand awareness?
I think it's a conversion opportunity because some of these celebrities or influencers are like just short of cult leaders, and their followers will do anything that they say. We call them influencers for a reason. The really successful ones can drive conversion because there is such trust. And as long as they're growing their base, there isn't like ever expanding influencer opportunity for conversion.
Have you guys engaged with a celebrity influencer yet?
We don't have any big names. We're on the more of the micro stage, just more proportional to our size right now. But it's definitely something that if there was the right fit and there was somebody that really believed in our mission, I think it would be a no-brainer to bring them on board as an equity partner.
Okay. So all celebrities out there watching this panel, get in touch with Taylor.
If you have a good heart, not all celebrities, please.
They will be evaluated through CBT. Okay, let's see. Okay, I would like to ask you guys about your highs and lows of the past year. So Danny, let's kick it off with you.
Sure. I think one trend that's been really interesting for Yahoo Finance is the evolution of meme stocks and crypto. Crypto was like 3 or 4 years ago, hot. It went really cold and downhill, and then became hot again. And then towards the beginning of this year, meme stocks such as GameStop and AMC and Bed Bath & Beyond, of all places, they became really powerful. And I think the community behind these stocks really rallied them. And it was really interesting to see how these collectives could move the market, basically. So fortunately, Yahoo Finance we've been in a good place to capitalize on this renewed interest, and especially among a younger demographic. So we've been able to usher in a younger audience to our product. We've been able to capitalize on this movement by speaking their terms and talking about AMC to the moon and GME. Really kind of capitalizing on Wall Street Bets, the community, and showing users the stocks they're interested in. So that's definitely been a high for us to take advantage of these efforts and help really kind of drive a younger audience into finance, which has traditionally been more intimidating. But it doesn't need to be that way with technology and the power behind Robinhood and other apps of that nature today. It doesn't need to be something that's only exclusively for those with investing power. So that's been really fun to see, and we've been here for it.
Okay, and before I get to Taylor and Belong on that question, Danny, we have a question from the audience. So Ankit asks, due to the pandemic, what has been the change in user behavior, if any, you've seen in fintech apps?
Yeah, so I think that it's super interesting, right? I'd say overall there's been a heightened interest, especially among younger users. And what's also been unique to see is the number of women getting involved in investing. I think, it's been really great to see the data and metrics that show that younger users are investing, more women are getting involved. Our data used to be more heavily skewed towards male. It's almost even now between male and female, and I think that goes to show the power of the technology behind it. More people are comfortable with investing, and I think because of the apps and especially in fintech, it's really helping usher in and really break down the barriers that once were there. So in terms of the trends, I think it's overall a very positive signs for the industry. And I think even as we try to D&I obviously is very important to us too. So we want to be representative of all of our users, and we want to help anyone who is interested in investing take the first foundational steps they need in order to feel familiar and confident in their investing.
Yeah. So Danny, when I was on maternity leave a few years back, I actually used Yahoo Finance and day traded.
Awesome. Love it.
Bucks in oil and gas stocks, while I was sitting around nursing. So I love that women and people that traditionally were not investing are taking that up. And I think it's definitely due to apps like you guys that make it more possible. So that's awesome.
Great to hear.
Okay. So Taylor, back to you. So what are there's housekeeping. What are the highs and lows that you've experienced in the past year?
I mean, sometimes you have to really reframe it. Not all is one big low. So I'm trying not to look at the last year that way because I'm a very empathetic person and I see everybody struggling with a lot of things, whether it's getting their work done or keeping a roof over their heads. And it's hard to see. But Bloom has been able to be there for a lot of people. And I think the stories that we've gotten out of our users, the way that they share with us what we've been able to do, have been very inspiring and motivated us to like keep tracking on, keep building things that help people deal with the things that they cannot change and that are getting them down. So that has really just been like a flood of love in both directions, honestly, because everything that we're making to empower and uplift, hopefully a billion people. That's the mission. I think you're still muted.
Thanks for that tip. Balan, before we get to your high and low, we have another question from the audience, which I think that you might be best suited to answer. So Matt asks, what are the industries where you see mobile taking over web the most?
I guess that's a question for me, right?
Yep.
Just based on my personal observation, generally speaking, I feel like for web, particularly for mobile webs, it is still actually quite easy to use and pretty accessible if people want to explore certain things, particularly new to them. They want to actually look up for something, they want to actually do their own research for something. But we do notice that when it comes to consumption and continuous engagement and behavior, apps definitely becomes more advantageous to mobile web. So with that logic, I would say anything that requires long-term relationship and engagement and consumption, to be honest, I feel like app will always be in a very good position to basically to carry that task. So for us, for example, for Audible, we do see a lot of people exploring, for example, new content or our membership and value propositions on the web. But after they sign up or after they basically seriously want to actually use Audible, they always actually come to download the app and start to consume more. So all the traffic start to converge from different channels to the app surface. So that's a pretty clear sign for us for the power of the app surface and then how people engage and use it.
Anyone else want to answer that question?
I'm really excited, and I'm not in e-commerce at all, but I'm very excited about the way that checkouts have been moving closer and closer to the user where they're at. So when it comes to all of the acquisition problems that are caused by attribution breakdowns and privacy, the closer you move it to where they're browsing in the first place, whether it's your Instagram feed or whatnot, the less you lose data-wise, and it's just a better checkout experience for that user. So I think we're going to see a lot more platform integration, and it's happening first on mobile because of the way that apps are structured, and you have to just literally import and embed those technologies in order for that checkout to work.
Danny, anything?
I would agree with that. Look, it's all about taking whatever friction is there and reducing it for the user, and that's easier said than done on apps. But if you're able to, have a solid onboarding experience, have a good engagement plan in place, and then ultimately find out where you're losing users along the way. That's what we've been really trying to do is heighten engagement, reduce friction, grow the audience.
I think we're going to see in-app purchases move into social apps pretty soon, like start trials and all of that.
Further to the discussion, we have another question from the audience. So Nicholas asks, what do you see as the largest opportunity or biggest struggle for user engagement in-app? Anyone want to take that?
I'll take a
might
stab.
say from our perspective, it's real-time personalization. You know, we're really trying to connect with users. It's very important that we show the right content to them in that moment, because the wrong content for us is so alienating. It's not a lost conversion, it's potentially a fully lost user for life. So if we are insensitive about what we show you, we've really messed up. So the faster we can find the right therapy session, the closer of a connection we have with that user.
And you do that by actively pursuing questions about what they're here for, what their pain is, right?
Yeah, we have onboarding questionnaires, and then once you are, subscribed and using, there's other data points that we collect throughout the engagement with the app and the content and their guides and their lessons. We also have kind of journaling use cases as well. So there's quite a lot that can be used to personalize, but it's about not crossing that line and keeping that trust, especially because this is healthcare adjacent while not being, medically prescribed.
Okay, cool.
I think related to that, the one thing I want to call out is from a usage or engagement perspective, when users are on the web, they're always online. So it is easy to basically use whatever real-time data or technology on the back end to serve the right content. But for app usage, many times you will find that users are offline, or their internet connection is not necessarily good. So we need to figure out a way to better both make sure that we're serving the right content, but in the same time, don't disrupt the user experience because you wanted to try something. For example, you want to actually try A/B testing, but if it is offline, in the offline environment, it may actually cause certain bugs or frictions in the user experience. So it's a delicate balance. So that's also something that we're working through here at Audible.
So we're getting some questions from the audience about privacy and tracking. And, interestingly, I opened up Instagram this morning and was served an interstitial banner talking about the very issue and inviting me to update my settings on if I want to be tracked or not. So what are you guys thinking about this, and how are you actively planning to compensate for that loss of privacy cookie information to allow you to target users better? Taylor, do you want to start?
Yeah, so we're just maximizing what we have for first-party data. We're going a lot harder on the product personalization, and there will be just less flowing into the acquisition data. We're kind of accepting that amount. We're a small company, but other companies I've worked for have been merging with other companies, right, to grow their data pool. And that's a really great strategic position to be in if you can have a lot of O&O data and find compliant ways to connect that to leverage across marketing and product growth. Then I am very envious. But I went into this job knowing that this was going to be a challenge, but one kind of worth taking. But it is very uphill when you're on the smaller side and just dealing with limited amounts of data, and there's more and more breakage.
What about some of the bigger guys? Danny, Belong?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's tough, right? Like right now, we're not able to get a true sense of what our acquisition, how many users we're actively bringing into the app, right? Like everything is kind of skewed, and it's tough to get what used to be real time and accurate. Now it doesn't tell the full story. Unfortunately, right? And that's with iOS 14.5 and 14.6. Like, who knows what I guess challenges iOS 15 is going to bring, right? And that's coming up in the near future. So, I think with the changes going on, it really just kind of emphasizes how good of an onboarding experience you need to have for every new user that you bring into the app. You want to ensure they're able to, for at least, set up a portfolio, add a stock, favorite their stocks, start their portfolio and utilize the full capabilities of what Yahoo Finance can offer them. But I think beyond that, it's really telling to lean into the brand metrics associated with our campaigns too. So while we may not necessarily have the same CPI as we did a few months ago, we can also lean into the brand metrics and try to better understand impressions served, whatever brand lift studies we're able to run, and see what we can do to gauge user sentiment and favorability as well.
Yeah, so I'll just say this. So that for the past year before I started with EagleView, like a month and a half ago, I was working with a bunch of different companies in a consulting capacity. And so the benefit of one of the many benefits of that was that I was able to see patterns in paid accounts across several different industries and different companies. And by and large, they were all seeing declines in ROI on Facebook. And the hypothesis that we were having is that they were testing their new algorithm without cookies to try to normalize for the baseline data pre-cookie for when this change actually occurred. And I'm wondering, and as a result, we were paying more, right, and seeing less output. But I'm wondering if you guys saw that too.
I can say that leading up to the switchover, as soon as it was announced and we had a closer estimated arrival for 14.5, there were just tons of rising costs, definitely ate into our bottom line. And I sort of thought of this more on the demand side of I'm competing with people who want to spend while the attribution is solid. But you never know how many tests an ad network is running that is impacting your overall, and you really can't opt out. So definitely just you got to take those, roll with those punches, really.
Yeah, that's a good thought too. I hadn't thought about that one. What about you guys, Danny and Belong? Can you share?
So I think that certainly we're seeing a lot of changes and moves in the campaign performance. But I'll say this is only one of the moving factors. So we're also dealing with a lot of other variables. For example, from our own product perspective, we actually last year launched a new product called Audible Plus. So basically now we have a portfolio of different services and product on the market. And then we're also actually actively trying to change our targeting to basically scale and then tap into other demographic audiences. So it's a whole bunch of things we're playing with together. So I'll say this basically as probably this is just to comfort myself, but as a marketer, there's never a time that you would actually feel 100% confident about something or 100% sure about something. Let's think about basically 20 years ago, before Facebook and Google took over everything, and marketing was certainly still a combination of art and science, but it was pretty much art. So now we're just basically getting probably more balanced towards that, and then we just have to live with it and then figure out what's the risk we want to take, what's the bet we want to bid, right? So I think that's always going to be the case.
Yeah, I think forever we've had attribution issues, right? And there's that old adage that the CEO thinks that 80% of what the CMO tells her is bullshit. And that's just the fact of life, unfortunately. The marketing is directional for a reason, right? So I think, with these challenges that I've seen coming from paid platforms, my direction to my team has been to increase efforts in content production and value add to the consumer so that we can capture them based on them seeing value and associating with our brand, right? And I'm curious, how are you guys looking at this? Are you changing your budget allocation to other channels, or are you holding the course? And I realize this is off script, right? So these are like new questions I'm throwing at you.
I love spontaneous questions. I love it. Then I don't have to look at 2 documents. I don't have to look at what I promised to say. So I did want to comment on something Belong said, which is it was more art and then it became more science. And then as we shift back to more art, I think you're going to see humans, figure out not just what are they focusing on day to day, but you're going to see them change tracks within companies and move into product testing, move into like overall growth roles. So people who were really attracted to the science of marketing and acquisition are going to just find other ways to use those skills. They just might not have a home in marketing, but there's always something to use those skills to grow a brand. And from a company perspective, I think we had some of this shift predicated by the fact that there were more and more automation tools for marketing, right? There had been less of an individual amount of time spent on managing campaigns and optimizing and things like that, whether the tools were software that we bought or the advancements in the platforms of Facebook and Google themselves. So that was already kind of being forced out of our hands and taken away from us. And I think this is just accelerating that trajectory a little bit. So I do spend more of my time working on product tests than I used to and developing hypotheses around user behavior, and less trying to like exactly find the bullseye of the perfect creative for my ads every single time. And generally still do a lot of testing and follow best practices there, but try to have less hindsight about what worked every single time.
What about you guys? Danny?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely lean into what Taylor just said. We definitely A/B test and ABC test more, and why stop at C, right? But really, along the way, we just try to measure, optimize, test again. What can we do to improve user time spent on our apps? What can we do to reduce the friction to set up a portfolio? What can we do to set up a portfolio for users that they may be interested in, such as, what are the companies that Warren Buffett owns, right? So that, or what are the cryptocurrencies that we have data on? We have those watch lists already set up, and you can add them at a touch of a button. So we really tried to kind of think from a user first perspective, and then test more and optimize.
All right. So when you're thinking about growth, what metrics are you using to benchmark your progress? Along?
Certainly the number one thing is we certainly optimize for full funnel. So we're looking at our member base to see whether we can grow the member base. Certainly, if you break that down, it basically was made up of basically both acquisition and retention and engagement. So certainly we want to bring in more users and customers, but in the same time, we want to make sure that they stay and engage and consume. So that's very important for us. So, and then also related back to your last question, Marcy. So I think you're right that regardless the changes on the marketing front, the critical piece is we need to make sure that our product is the best in class. So one of the major focuses for our company is to really to invest back into the customer experience to make sure that the customer journey is frictionless, and then the content is there, and we're serving the right information to our customers. So that's basically one of the major internal sort of like campaign we're doing before we can actually scale even further externally. We need to really figure out whether we're actually doing creating the value for our customers and members. So that's definitely a focus for us this year and beyond.
Okay. And in terms of the metrics that you use to benchmark progress, Danny, do you have any specific ones that you're tracking?
Yeah, certainly. So, just the cost to install an app, it doesn't tell the full story, because it doesn't tell how engaged the user is or how qualified of an audience they are. So we try to marry the cost per install with with how long we actually retain those users. So we typically use benchmarks along the lines of cost per D7 retained user, cost per 14-day retained user, and ultimately cost per MAU. Those are what we try to use to marry how qualified the user is and how well we are at engaging them.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking about the three of you and your different apps. Those churn metrics, the timelines might be different for each one of you, So I think it's about figuring out if you're a CBT app, maybe people are looking for something that's happening to them right now versus long-term, trading portfolio or something like that. So that's interesting. I'm wondering, so Taylor, your app Bloom is distinguished from Danny and Belongs maybe in its stage of development, and there's probably a lot of people listening right now that are interested in starting out their new apps, right? And so I'm wondering if you have any guidance on how you propose to leadership to allocate budget to marketing to actually drive app downloads and engagement, versus maybe someone like Danny and Belong who have established brands.
Yeah, our oldest cohort had their first birthday, a few months ago, and we do not have to worry too much about stressing about remarketing budget allocation just yet. I've worked at some older brands as well, but typically all of that just has to be paired with rigorous incrementality testing, a lot more so than new user acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
I think more and more new user acquisition will add in incrementality testing with this death of attribution, so to speak.
Yeah.
But when it comes to allocation, this is very much about what is your burn rate? We're a startup, right? We are trying to make it to that next round, right? So everything that we're doing is about prioritizing different types of growth investments. And sometimes that means hiring additional engineering over growth marketing. And so we have that conversation kind of on a quarterly basis of where can we really press the gas in a responsible way. So we're in a good place where our acquisition metrics are like nice and healthy, and we can put our foot on the gas a little bit. But there's also moments where I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to double it in the next 4 weeks, but could we increase our product testing acceleration by a certain percentage points if we brought on a freelancer for 6 weeks and like really pushed a few features out the door that we have high confidence are going to impact retention or our renewal rates. So it's really about finding where you can have impact and confidence in that impact. And I feel lucky to have like a stake in both sides of what we can invest in.
So we're getting some questions around. The audience would like to hear more about post-install performance metrics. So would either of you guys like to share sort of some of the key metrics that you're using to track post-install performance?
I mean, we're a subscription app. The subscription metrics don't typically get too reinvented. We have a week free trial, we have a monthly option, and we have an annual option. So all of that is pretty boilerplate in terms of what you should be using if you have that kind of business model. As far as the engagement metrics, we are this kind of interactive video platform. So we do have some more like product and feature specific engagement metrics that we watch out for that feed into maybe a top level retention metric that's like at the 4 week or 8 week mark. And we're looking for those early signs of people are using the features correctly or not at all.
What about Danny or Belong?
Yeah, what's interesting is that not only are we a free app, but we also have a subs product as well. So, post install, we're looking at, how many days the user comes back into our app and overall time spent within the apps. But then we're also trying to convert them from a free user to a paying user. And, similar to what Taylor mentioned, we have a 14-day free trial. And then we have 2 different products that we try to upsell users to. And to be fair, these are more so tailored towards retail investors and those looking to get an edge on their trading. So to help with that, we look at the typical churn rates, number of users who turn into paying users post free trial. That's super important. And then just the average tenure, right? So every user who turns into a paying subscriber, how long do they stay on average? And what can we do over time to increase that? Because the longer, obviously, of a paying subscriber we can get, the better our LTV will look.
Go ahead, Paul.
I think for us, we're similar to basically what Taylor was saying, but because our free trial is a 30-day free trial, which is a kind of a long time window. So we wanted to also actually get some more instant metrics we can look at. So we identified some of the high value actions. For example, the first book redeemed, first book content downloaded on your phone, first listen, or same day cancel, or plan switch within the first 5 days. Those became the early indicators for us to use to see whether the members or the new customers are on a healthy track to become paid members or actually stay with Audible in the long run. Whether we need to do certain things to interrupt that track that path or not. So those were basically the additional metrics we're also looking at.
I'd love to know this question, but I'm not going to ask for an answer belong, but like, what genre of people on Audible are the most valuable customers? But you don't have to answer that. Okay. All right. So another question for you guys, and some people are asking, I've had a couple questions come in about Clubhouse. So as marketers, we're seasoned to distractions. Almost yearly, there's a new distraction for us that we must get on and pursue. All the people are there, right? And we hear it from board, we hear it from CEOs, we hear it from our friends. I'm curious to know if you guys found any incremental growth on Clubhouse or if you are actively pursuing it in any way.
I've dabbled, and the vertical that we are in doesn't always sit right personally with me with what I find for the content that's out there. And so I think they have some maturation in terms of curating that content and, creating higher quality things for people to engage with and learn from with regards to mental health. I think an example of a platform that put in the work there would be Pinterest, where in the beginning there was a lot of misinformation because so much of it is UGC. And as a brand, you just had to pick and choose, what you wanted your metrics to go or your creatives to go up against. And on Clubhouse, we're still in those early days where things are not moderated, things are not fact checked, which has a lot of implications when it comes to improving your health. And also Clubhouse, facilitates and fosters interactions. So one thing I'm missing right now is we're getting questions via text. Clubhouse would have someone hop on the mic and ask it. And I do miss that. That's really nice to have when you're doing a panel like this. But when it comes to the ones that I've participated in for mental health, the audience participation, it's a lot more hesitant for the average user, and you just get these kind of noisy spectators for the most part.
Yeah, a lot of people pitching themselves, it seems like, right? What about you guys?
I mean, we have an editorial presence on Clubhouse, but in terms of an active marketing channel for us, it's not there yet. Not to mention Twitter Spaces, Facebook's working on their own version of it. There are so many flashy things out there, and it's hard to properly allocate resources towards them all. It's just too difficult to do. So if I had a dime for every time, someone asked me about a new platform that we wanted to try, I'd be rich. But it's just a matter of, really identifying which channels will perform, and then allocating, a range towards test and learn opportunities where the performance might not be there initially, but you can still gauge whether the platform is successful.
Yeah, I agree with Danny. We're in the same boat. And if you also think about our North Star metric or KPI we want to drive, which is the net member growth, we're looking for people who can actually stay and become long-term customers. So that helps us to basically to focus, to not necessarily be distracted by a lot of different new things. Certainly we're watching, we're actively researching and potentially testing as well. But our long-term goal is we want to actually find the people who can stay. So that helps us.
So have you guys found any new channels in the past, let's call it 18 months, that have provided incremental value for you that you've and continue to increase your spend in?
I'll go with performance PR. It's obviously very timely in health right now to have stories related to improving mental health and dealing with the pandemic. So strategically pitching, consistently pitching, having an understanding of what journalists want to cover and how to connect it back to what we're making has been really great for us, and we can track those spikes when those pieces drop. And there's been other industries I've been a part of where that's been part of the overall growth team as well.
And so tell me, because I don't know, what's the difference between performance PR and regular PR?
You're quantifying your pitches. You're estimating what the CPMs would have been to get that advertorial and with the same space in print or those same number of minutes on those number of channels. So having an agency that's willing to quantify what they're giving you or somebody in-house who's really very responsible about the coverage that they're earning.
Cool.
I'd say an interesting new channel for us has been just Reddit. Again, going back to Wall Street Bets, it'd be silly for us not to test and learn there. Obviously, some brand safety concerns, but other than that, that's the only place where there is Wall Street Bets, and that's the only place where there is such a big growing audience of younger investors who are clamoring for more information, and we just happen to have it. So fortunately, Reddit's been really interesting for us to try. Obviously, it skews way more heavily on mobile. So I think that provides some good opportunities for us as marketers in the finance or even media space.
Awesome. I think we're heading into our final moments here. So Balong, what about you?
So this may not be new to many other brands, but it is relatively new to us. So we've seen really great growth from in-app purchase, particularly from iOS. We enabled this to improve the user experience, because people in the past were not able to consume, purchase directly through the iOS app for Audible. So we really wanted to change that. So basically, as a side of a product from that, we did see quite a lot of growth coming through that channel. So we're actually doubling down in that by basically leveraging this more effective channel now.
Awesome. Well, any final thoughts from you guys as we wrap this one up?
It's going to be another wild year.
Hopefully better.
Can't get worse, right?
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And I hope you have a chance to enjoy the rest of the summit. And thanks to the audience for such great questions. It made it for a much more interesting panel. So thanks, guys, so much.
All right. Thank you.
And yeah, just echo that. Thanks. Really appreciate you all joining us today. And thank you so much to Marcy for moderating. It's a very tough gig, and she did an amazing job. I think you should become a professional moderator for us, Marcy, because you did such a great job. So thanks so much. I know there's quite a few questions still in there. Maybe if anyone has time, either now or later, and you can just dive into Swapcard and maybe answer a few with text, that'd be great, and we can mop up those last few questions. But yeah, thanks everyone, and really appreciate it. Next up, we have Rap Chat, how we got to 7 million users. So yeah, okay, well, thanks everyone.